All right, we need to give it some first thoughts on the quarterfinal games. Now, we are going to have a full breakdown that will come out on the 29th of previewing and going deeper into all 4 quarterfinal games. First of all, I got to say, I'm super excited for them. Like, super compelling matchups. I do hate there is one rematch. We'll get to that in the Georgia Ole Miss game. But, like, these are going to be some heavyweight games. You've got Oregon versus Texas Tech. We'll just go down the bracket in the way that it is organized on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. That one has been, like, I'm very excited. Well, actually, let's just go through them in this order. Okay, so Oregon, Texas Tech. I have been super excited for this one because of strength on strength. Like, we've talked so much all season about Texas Tech's defensive front. They're so good at forcing turnovers. They're so good at getting pressure on quarterbacks. They have 2 consensus All-Americans in Jacob Rodriguez and David Bailey. You can argue which one of them has been more important for them, but that is worth every penny. And then you've got an Oregon offense that we just talked about. 5 touchdown drives in the first half against JMU, 5 plays or fewer, quick strike, super explosive. I'm excited for that matchup. Like, I think that is going to be awesome. I think that, you've got this Joe Moore Award finalist offensive line for Oregon. It's going to be really challenged. Texas Tech has not played an offense like this. And Oregon's defense doesn't always get as much credit because we do focus on the explosiveness and the excitement of the offense, but that's a team that's really good at limiting big plays from opponents. So as we talk about, because I think that's probably where it's going to be decided, Texas Tech's offense versus Oregon's defense. I think that's an important point. But I'm just really excited because, like, these are 2 teams that are known for one thing, and they're both going to come right up against each other.
It's so intriguing. I think, like, watching Oregon on Saturday, I think they made a point of running the football because people had talked about this JMU defense that was second in FBS and rushing. And I think this is how Dan Lanning kind of is, but, like, I think he's going to try to make a point here about their ability to handle those guys on the Texas Tech defense. And it's so it will be something to marvel at, just the battle there. I agree with you. Like, it is pure strength on strength there. I think I have, the more I watch Texas Tech on offense, I think I have questions about them, but also after watching Oregon defensively this weekend, it's not like I'm as confident maybe as I once was. So I think that'll be a unique battle too.
That one will be, I keep forgetting where everyone is. Okay, so that is the Orange Bowl at noon on January 1st. Let's look back at the bracket for next game. Okay, so the winner of that game will play the winner of Indiana, Alabama. That's the Rose Bowl game. Indiana is the higher seed. Indiana is favored by a touchdown. I just like Indiana football favored over Alabama football at the Rose Bowl. This one is just really fun before we get to the football standpoint with the backstories, because you have 2 head coaches that have both coached at the other school as a coordinator or an assistant. But obviously, Curt Cignetti had 5 years under Nick Saban at Alabama. Kalen DeBoer and his defensive coordinator, Kane Womack, were both at Indiana in their previous, like, high point of the 2019 season with Michael Penix Jr. So there's just a ton of familiarity and respect, I think, for both places that are coming into this, everything coming up. Indiana, Fernando Mendoza coming off of Indiana's first Heisman Trophy. They are the 1 seed. They're coming into this game that I think is a really interesting matchup, to the point that you made earlier. Did Alabama figure some stuff out? Because they have a really high ceiling. The question was, like, what Alabama shows up, and is their lack of a run game going to be a problem? Is their defense going to be porous? Is Ryan Williams going to be a factor in any of their games? Like, that's been an open question moving forward as well. So there's a lot of offensive skill and talent. Indiana just dealt with a team that had Julian Sain, a Heisman finalist, and 2 of the best receivers in the country in Ohio State. That's going to be really interesting, and the preparation as well. But, like, this is another one of those matchups for Indiana where, yes, we know they're super well coached and they're very sound, but they're going to be going up against a lot of guys that are going to be playing on Sundays. How do they handle that in the moment? Can they keep up offensively? Like, there's some of those questions as well. And I want to get your thoughts on all of those, but Joshua, are you surprised at the line? It's about a touchdown Indiana. No? Okay.
Nope. Put my money on Indiana on this one. Curt Cignetti is ruining the lives of a lot of people right now. And it's because he is elite at what he does. If Indiana wins this game and continues to make a run, like I think that the amount of patience that anybody has is going to completely evaporate, because you go to that place and you make a run at a title. Like what he has done, I think, is one of the most remarkable things that we've seen in sports. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before we get into really previewing this one. Here's my thing. I think Indiana's defense is going to get after Ty Simpson. I do. Like watching them early in the game against Oklahoma, watching what they looked like late in the season. That dude was running for his life. They don't protect very well. And we watched what they did to Ohio State and Julian Sand and how they made him uncomfortable and how they were able to get home. And I feel like Alabama is susceptible to giving up some of those negative plays. They have no run game, and we know Indiana, like, it's kind of the old Nick Saban, Bill Belichick. They're going to try to take away things that you do well. They know you can't run it. Like this to me feels like not just that Indiana's a better team. I don't think it's a great matchup for Alabama.
Yeah, like that's what's going to be really, really interesting, because Indiana does kind of live in the backfield, from a defensive standpoint. They're also very sound. They don't blow coverages. They're where they need to be and where the ball is going to be. And you've had Curt Cignetti with extra time to prepare for this matchup, because I'm sure they would have been already prepared for Oklahoma if that was the team that they were going to play as well. So again, I think Alabama has a much higher ceiling than Oklahoma. So like there is some legitimate concern, but this is a team in Indiana that has already beaten a bunch of teams with more talent, right? Like they're going to send guys to the NFL now. So like they've developed it, but like talent on paper in Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa, like they have won in challenging places. They have done all of those things. So it's hard to bet against them anymore. Like it's not necessarily surprising, but it is funny that they would have to go through Alabama and Kalen DeBoer to do this. Let's go to the Sugar Bowl. This is the rematch. This is Georgia Ole Miss. We talked a lot about this. Like I am definitely concerned about Ole Miss defense. Georgia also, like since they played last, has turned into championship level Georgia, where they are more consistent. The defense shows up for both halves of games and all four quarters. And then Gunnar Stockton's really clutch. Like they just do a lot of things in a way that gives you confidence. So like to me, I think that this one is, of the four games, well, I was going to say it might be the most lopsided, but I kind of worry about Miami and in their game against Ohio State as well. So ultimately, like I really like Georgia in this matchup. Because I just think Ole Miss's defense, to your point earlier, is not championship caliber, and this is not a historic offense led by Joe Burrow and a bunch of future Hall of Famers.
I'm with you. There's not a lot that I have to really say at this point. You mentioned with Georgia, it just feels like they're hitting their stride. Gunnar Stockton, I have to say, every time I talk about him, like just does what you want your quarterback to do. He's gritty. He hits the plays with his legs. He hits the plays through the air. It's a defense to me that also is starting to look more like what you would have anticipated. This is a Georgia defense that struggled for large parts of the year to get pressure, to get sacks, to get TFLs. And in the SEC championship game, they did all of those things. It's a scary matchup. And for Ole Miss, like, once again, do I expect them to be able to move the ball a little bit? Certainly do. This is not a team that profiles well to me for making a run. And so I think Georgia's in a much better spot.
Last of the four quarterfinals. And again, we're going to go in depth on this next week after we get through Christmas holidays. This is, I think, a very interesting one. Ohio State and Miami. It's a Cotton Bowl. This will be on New Year's Eve. So make sure as you make your New Year's Eve plans, you're adjusting to have a TV so you can watch this one. We had said on Selection Sunday that like Ohio State got the toughest draw, right? That like, getting the winner of the Miami A&M game and then potentially Georgia, it was really challenging. After what I saw out of Miami, I'm not that worried about this game for Ohio State. I just think the way that they were calling the game led me to believe that they don't necessarily trust Carson Beck to go at them and win them a game in a really high pressure situation. They remember those multiple interception games. Malachi Toney is awesome, but it's not like Ohio State hasn't dealt with really talented receivers before. And I just think that Ohio State's offense is going to be able to score, not at will, but they'll be able to figure out this defense and handle the pressure, and they'll deal with, the edge guys and all of that. And I just think that their defense is going to overwhelm Miami. I think what we just saw from A&M leads me to believe that like Matt Patricia and company are like chomping at the bits.
I'm totally there with you. Like I don't see a world where Miami scores a lot of points. And again, I think for all these teams that we're talking about that didn't play this weekend, like one of the questions is going to be
rust. Yeah.
Yes, rust, right? Like these other teams figured out, okay, we're rusty here, we got to do this, whatever the case is. So like that I think should be a factor. Regardless, I think Ohio State's defense is going to come out and look the way that they did during the regular season. Like nobody scored a lot of points on them. I just don't see Miami doing it. The one hinge point is what you mentioned with the two rushers in Bain and Messidor. Like those guys can ruin your day, and they spent a lot of time in A&M's backfield. But I think after the Big Ten championship, Ryan Day took a really hard look at his offensive line and the way that those guys played in that game and said, okay, we have some things to figure out. And then probably looked and said, even with those mistakes, we were in scoring position multiple times in that game to be able to win. Again, like it's this idea that Ohio State's just a better team. And I think that's where a lot of people are leaning with this one. But also having seen Miami over the weekend, it's like, boy, if you can't muster up more than 10 points, like you're going to be in some big trouble.
Right. I think that's the main takeaway. And there were just like a lot of concerns. Again, like Mark Fletcher was awesome. Mm-hmm. Ohio State can adjust and figure out ways to take away the best players on these other teams. Right. We've seen them do it before. We also had said going into that game, Miami had been crushing people, but they hadn't played very good teams. Mm-hmm. And that changed against A&M, and that will definitely change against Ohio State. So we will go deeper. We will do a little more X's and O's, key X factors, just all the things that you need to know with those two games on Monday, the 29th, ahead of the games, which again one is New Year's Eve, 3 on New Year's Day, all the typical windows of when those games are going to be played at the Orange, Rose, and Sugar. So it should be awesome.